Welcome to AISD Extra. We have a packed show for you today. First, we'll hear from Superintendent Phil Edwards as he dives into important topics surrounding safety and security in our district. He'll also be answering some of your questions at the end of the podcast, so stay tuned for that. We'll switch gears with a special segment featuring Anya Villman, who's here with one of her talented students to discuss the Aristocat and other amazing dance programs available in our district. It's a packed episode filled with lots of information, so let's get started. Here's our host, Hannah Chalmers.
Welcome back to Angleton ISD's very own podcast, AISD Extra. We're excited to get it going again. And we, as always, we have our superintendent, Mr. Edwards, here. You want to say something, Mr. Edwards?
Hello, Hannah. How are you? I'm glad to be back this year. I'm excited to get our podcast started again.
I'm glad you're back to be ready to be back this year, not just, you mean for the podcast. You don't
For
mean,
the podcast.
okay.
We've been back in school for a little
Say,
while.
we've been back in for a while, but we're just going to jump into things because we got a few topics that are probably a little lengthy and want to make sure we cover as much as we can.
Absolutely.
And just jumping off the bat, like with a difficult one, maybe, we, and I mean all school districts in this area and across the state and even the nation, have been experiencing lately a lot of rising concerns and issues with safety, especially around threats, reports of threats, hoaxes with threats. Do you want to touch on that and discuss that in any way, or why that's a growing concern?
Yeah, I think it's a reality we have to deal with in schools these days, which is very unfortunate. Anytime you have a school shooting, and we had one that took place in the state of Georgia, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, you start to see the anxiety get ramped up at all schools. You also get students who make really poor choices, thinking it's a joke or trying to get attention. And so they say things or write things down that are wildly inappropriate. That's happened in Angleton. I was in a meeting yesterday with all the county superintendents here. Mm-hmm. Every school district in Brazoria County has experienced the same issue over the last 2 weeks. I can also tell you that just about every school district in Harris County is going through this. We've also gotten messages from TEA, the Texas Education Agency, that says these things are going on throughout our state. And so I think, again, it kind of leads off when unfortunate events and dangerous events happen in schools. Everybody's anxiety gets up, and that kind of starts that fear of what's going on. The thing that I think it's really important to tell people and to make sure parents talk to kids about these things is the consequences that come when a student does something like this.
Not just a threat, but also rumors and
rumors and threats and those things. But if they make a threat and it disturbs school, the consequences could be very severe in terms of law enforcement getting involved, in terms of students having to go to alternative placements outside their regular school, disrupting their education. It's just an event that they don't want to be associated with. And so what we're really trying to do is communicate with our students and our parents of do not do these kinds of things. Do not, even as a joke or in a need to get attention, it is a really, really bad choice, a poor choice. Do not do those things. And the disruption and the fear it causes in our schools is incredibly unfortunate.
I know law enforcement has even said, going so far as to say, it's better than re-putting it out there. If you hear something, screenshot it, then bring it to the right people. Yeah,
I think that's another thing that we see is very important here. One of the things that happened here in Angleton ISD is we had one student, or we had a group of students saying something about another student. And that kind of got out there, and the school that this happened at kind of got that settled and all done. Well, then the next thing you know, there's a social media post going out about something either on TikTok or Facebook or X or whatever. And I understand why people do those things, but the problem that occurs once that happens is other kids see this and they see the attention it gets, and we have more events, more types of threats come after a social media post than before the social media post. And so people need to understand is when they're posting these things in that manner, that it leads to more problems, creates more issues, creates more panic than it does help in anything.
Right.
There are better ways to communicate those things to us. We have Crime Stoppers. We have anonymous alerts. We have our police department phone numbers open all the time. That's the best way that you can help our students and our schools be safe, is to report it in that manner. not doing those things on Facebook. And I just want to throw this in there on that as well. A lot of people, times when I say those types of things, I hear, well, you're just saying that because you don't want the school to look bad. I will tell you that piece of advice is also coming from law enforcement agencies,
Right.
including the FBI.
Yeah,
they have now put out some PR materials and a video that we'll be sharing with our community, I believe,
Right.
very soon, that says the same thing. Do not go on social media and put these things on there. Here's the appropriate way that you need to do these things. And that is the biggest help and the biggest support you can give us, is let us know those things in the manners that we've described.
Are there some steps or things AISD is doing moving forward with safety issues?
Yes, ma'am. So anytime we have events like this, when we have something happen where a bunch of kids miss school, we're going to come together and put our pertinent people into the room and go, okay, let's review what happened. What could we have done better? What could we do better while the event was going on? What could we do better right now that can help stop these events happening? Right. We actually had that meeting Monday, and we've got a series of actions that we're going to be taking place. Proactive actions about how we communicate, what we can communicate, how we can communicate better, and making sure that people have correct information about what to do in these situations, again, to be the best way to help us. And what we can do for consequences. What are consequences we need to give out? And are we being consistent from school to school to school to make sure the same consequences are happening when they're appropriate and when we're able to do those kinds of consequences? Because there are issues that we get involved in that as well. But again, we're always going to take a look back at those things and how can we improve as a district. The last thing I'll mention is not just an AISD issue. Again, I think I mentioned that we met with all the Brazoria County superintendents. Well, we as a superintendent group came together, and I know you guys as PR directors came together. What can we do as school districts in our county to help improve all of our schools and the safety of all of our children in our schools? And so, yes, we're trying to be very proactive and learn and get better as we do these things.
And I do think speaking from the communications point of view, because that is what I do, I think the things we're trying to put into action hopefully will help parents understand how and why we do things. Right. Even more so. I know sometimes we're limited on what we can share, and I think parents hopefully understand that. I don't know if they always do.
I think that's one of the things that's really difficult for everybody to understand is there are laws that we have to follow. A lot of those things are sometimes privacy laws for students we can't break. So we can't be as upfront and as open about information as we would help us be. But that's because we have to respect students' privacy laws. I always tell parents these kinds of things. Yeah, we know you want to know more, but think if that was your child doing that, you would not want us broadcasting out everything that had happened with your child. Because again, they are children, they make mistakes, right? And so that's an issue. And there are other factors as well. We have to look at federal laws look at age of a kid when they do these kinds of things and what we can do to kids who are very, very young. That's not the same type of consequences we can give a 16-year-old. Right. And then we also have to look at other mitigating factors. If they possibly if they're covered by federal disability laws, then there's certain things and certain rules we have to follow there as well. And so there's just a lot of factors that go into what we can do to students and what we can communicate about students that we have to follow and be very well versed in. And sometimes that's prevents us from being as open as maybe people would want us to be.
Yeah, and to go back to the when things like these, every report is investigated, every single report.
Always,
right?
Always. I think that's the one thing I can. If anybody, again, best way to communicate with us is the way we've said. The other thing that we want to make sure we communicate is every threat we get, we investigate thoroughly and exhaustively. Our campus administrators, when these things were going on, were working till 9, 10 o'clock at night. Our police officers were working around the clock to make sure our schools were safe. And that includes a lot of time contacting parents of kids they're hearing things about, asking them what's going on. Does your student have access to weapons? We've even had times that our police officers have gone to homes, to search homes, to make sure kids don't have things that they could possibly bring to school. So our administrative staff and our police force do great jobs in making sure our schools are safe. The last thing I'll say about this is if any information ever gets to me as a superintendent that we cannot guarantee the safety of our students, we will not have school that day. We will not have events that evening. We will cancel those things because we're going to make sure our kids can come to school, be safe, and have that understanding of that's going to happen. So if I'm confident enough to say that our kids are going to be safe and that we're going to have school, then like I said, I'm making that decision based on the information I have that our kids are going to be safe. If I can't give people that assurance, then we won't have school.
I'm going to switch gears. Another maybe hot topic for everybody out there was, we have been in school. It maybe feels longer for people, but it's been only a little
About
over a month.
6 weeks, I think.
And so with that, can you talk about how the beginning of school went? I know we had a lot of changes this year. Not everybody was happy, but what was the start of school like?
To be real honest, the start of school went really smooth. We've been very busy. I think you mentioned change. We know Angleton is going through change process. That's a lot of what we've been talking about to our schools and a lot of systems we've been working on about how to change. We're building 2 new schools that'll open next August. There's a lot that goes into that. There's lots of other changes. We've started this year with a teacher incentive allotment that teachers can earn up to $20,000 in additional pay if they meet certain criteria as they go through the school year. And so that's a big change.
That's another change, yeah.
And we've got budget limitations that have come on to all schools due to lots of factors, including inflationary cost, cost of goods, and that the legislature really didn't address school funding in the last legislative session, and we're hopeful they will do so this time. And so those 3 things in itself have caused huge changes for us, and that's a lot of the work we've been doing. The great thing about this school year is kids are coming to school. We've got more kids enrolled in Angleton than we've ever had before, and for until the threat issue that came up, things have gone really, really smooth with the kids. They're learning, they're being successful. We're seeing lots of great things happen, and so we're very excited about that. And so, in terms of the thing that's the most important about kids coming to school, kids being in class, kids learning, kids having a great experience in Angleton ISD, it's been wonderful.
Let's talk. You've already talked about change. One of the big changes on the horizon that everybody kind of already knows about, I think, for the most part, is the rezoning process for next school year, the attendance zones. Can you speak a little bit about that, for what that's going to look like for where 25-26 and where we are in that process?
So I'll start talking about the process first. As you know, we put out school zones, I believe, end of April, 1st of May, and we put them out there for the publics to make comments on it. And I want to congratulate our public. I think we got almost 300 comments.
It was over 300, yeah.
That came to us, and we listened to those things. A lot of the most common comment we got was, looks good. I'm excited about it. But the next most common comment we got was, I'm not real sure about, I don't really like that my kid's not going to be able to have the ability to transfer schools. They were in one school, you're moving them to another school, and you're telling them that's where they got to go.
It's really surrounding the transfer.
Yes, yeah. And so because we initially said that we were not going to allow any transfers in the 25-26 school year. I think the next most common is, this zone that you have here really doesn't make sense. I can tell you what we did is we paid attention to those comments. We are reworking our transfer policy. I will tell you we will allow transfers in 25-26. We'll be putting out very soon what that will look like and how that process will happen. It will be different. But that many public comments about not allowing transfers, I just wasn't comfortable with. And so we're going to have a system that allows kids to possibly transfer out of their zone schools into another school.
And because of those differences, people really do need to pay attention when that stuff goes out, because I think there's going to be a deadline
absolutely,
attached to
yeah.
it.
So
okay.
typically what we've done in the past is zone. We don't even start asking for transfers till June. More likely what we're looking at this year is we're going to ask for transfers in February. If you want to transfer, we're going to release the zones. Let me kind of back up a little bit. So we've got those comments. We've redrawn the zones now. We will be releasing those out to the public. I think we've actually put them on the website right now, what the current zones are. We are now going to get a committee of community members to come in and give us feedback on those zones. We'll go through the process again. We'll continue to look at things. The goal being that the zones will be finalized by our board in December. Once that happens, we will send a letter out to every student in our school district that will say, this is where you are scheduled to be zoned to school for the 25-26 school year. So if you were a student at Frontier this year and you're zoned to go to Heartland Elementary, you'll get a letter that says this is where you're zoned to go. If you were zoned to go to Central this year and you are now zoned to go to Northside, you'll get a letter that says you're now zoned to go to Northside. Once those letters go out, we expect that by the end of January. Then in February, we are expecting to open up the transfer policy to say, look, if you want to transfer, now's the time you have to request that, and we'll give that a month to happen. And so that's when people will need to submit their request for transfers, and then we'll go through those review process and approve them or deny them based on several factors that we'll look at, and then communicate those things out by March. Of where kids will be, this is where you will be going to school at the 25-26 school year. And so it's a very long, involved process, but we're trying to be very thorough. We're trying to be very fair in what we do. We want to make sure parents have options and choices, and that we're not being too disruptive to their students.
And limiting to them,
where they went to school, what their social networks are with their friends, those kinds of
Absolutely.
things. And so we want to give options that when we can allow those things to happen, that's what we will be able to do.
Building a little bit more on that process, I think it would help people too to understand some of the factors that go into how those zones are chosen, because it's not just willy-nilly.
Right.
There's factors that go into why they're drawn up the way that they are.
Correct. A lot of it deals, so a whole bunch of, the thing that's really important about zoning is staffing. We want to make sure we're not overloading one school with a classroom size of 30 third graders in a room, while another school has 14 third graders in a room. That's not equitable or fair. And so we would not allow transfers to go into those types of situations. It's where we would have room. So if a parent wants their child, say, to go to Rancho Isabella or Angleton Junior High, and we look at the class sizes and we can fit that student in there under those class sizes, yes, we will look at that. I know one of the things that's been on my mind is kids that may be who have spent 5 years since kindergarten in one elementary school, and then as a fifth grader, we're asking to move. We may have a little bit more leniency about that because that's their last year in that elementary school. And so we will be taking a look at that as well. But again, class sizes and how many staff members we have in that school is allowable to how many kids we can allow into that grade level. And that's the majority of things that will probably drive
Right.
that. Now, let me just say this also. There are also special programs that you will continue to go to that school. So like the dual language program at Westside, or if your child gets special ed services at a specific campus, that will continue. You won't have to do a transfer for that. We will just continue those services just like we always have. And so when you get that letter, it'll say your child is going to be part of the dual language program at Westside. And that's where you'll be enrolled at school next year for the upcoming school year.
And you also do look at, and I think it's important people understand this, the demographics of your student population.
Absolutely. So when we're zoning, we don't want one school to have a whole bunch of one segment of kids, while another school has a completely different
lower socioeconomic.
We want those numbers to be fairly equal. One of the things I'll just say this: one of the things that we are really, really proud about in Angleton ISD is the equity that goes on in all our schools. When you look at our 6 elementary schools, what we see across the board is it doesn't matter what school you go to, what ethnicity you come from, what your socioeconomic background is from. Our numbers for all of those groups are very similar. We don't have huge gaps in our student achievement. And so we wanted to make sure we continue those things, and that our schools are representative of our whole community in whole. And so we want our schools to look like that as well. And so those are things we pay attention to when we're rezoning and putting students into those zones as well.
Well, I'm going to wrap up this segment with one last question, and it's kind of broad. So what is in store for AISD this 24-25 school year?
Well, like I said, we've got the new schools being built, and we'll continue to go through that process. We've talked about the TIA, the teacher incentive allotment. That increased teacher pay will come from. We've got a legislative session coming up, and
That's
so we're
huge.
going to be paying a lot of attention to what that is and how that helps funding.
I think parents need to pay attention to that too. Our listeners and community members need to pay attention to
Absolutely.
that, because it really truly affects what we are able to do at the school.
That's right, and it affects the amount of services, academic services, and things that we're able to provide for our students.
Absolutely.
And so that we're going to be paying very close attention to that. And then I'll mention this. We have been going through a facility study here in Angleton Independence in our school district. We've now gotten that back, and we know there are some facilities that we've got to address. We've got 2 elementary schools that are pushing over 70 years of age.
Wow.
We've got a current junior high, Angleton Junior High, that's over 50 years of age. All 3 of those facilities have got major infrastructure issues that we've got to address. That's what our facility study has shown us. And I think the other thing that we've got to pay attention to is we've got 2 brand new schools opening up, new junior high and new elementary schools. And those buildings look very different classroom-wise than our older buildings like South Side and North Side. And so that equity of schools is something we're paying attention to. And so we've gotten the facility study in. We know what needs to be done. Now we're going through the process of looking at how do we fund those things? Right. What do we need to do to get the money to be able to fix those problems? I'm going to present that to the board in our regular October board meeting, and then we will start the process of getting some groups together to go, okay, how do we want to do this? What needs to be addressed? How do we go about doing that?
And that involves community as well.
That will mainly involve community
Absolutely.
members, that we will be getting input from that. And if that group gives us the go-ahead, we will be looking at possibly a bond steering committee in the spring to look at possible bond elections in the future for Angleton ISD to address some of these issues that we have.
Future. Don't take that as that's what we're saying today.
Well, that we're a long way from saying that we're going to hold another bond election.
Absolutely.
I think there's steps we want to go through. We want to make sure we can do it responsibly. Mm-hmm. One of the great things about the bond that we did in 2019 and the bond that we did in 2022 is that we passed bonds. We have not raised the tax rate. In fact, we've lowered the tax rate when those 2 bonds have been passed. We have also brought all of our facility construction projects in under budget, and we are on track to do the same thing now with those 2 schools. And so
that's a huge feat.
So when I say responsible, that's what we want. We want people to understand. We don't bring these to you just to go do them. We want to make sure we have facilities that meet the needs of our students and our community, and that we're responsible in spending the community taxpayers' money to do those types of things. And so that will be the driving force in deciding what to do.
Well, first segment of this episode, I want to thank you for joining us. You gave us a lot of good information.
I did. There are a lot of things going on.
A very broad general update of what's happening at AISD. Of course, I know you always say you have an open door policy if people want to follow up and ask questions.
Absolutely.
And we at AISD want to encourage you. If you have questions, let us know. But thank you again for joining us, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, everybody, for helping with this. It's great to be back.
So we're back with one of my favorite parts of the podcast, which is actually when we get to sit down and talk to some of our staff, maybe even a student. And today we're lucky to have both amazing staff and student in here. We have the wonderful, amazing, I've said amazing like 50 times, but it really goes without saying she really is amazing. AHS Aristocat Director and Dance Instructor, Miss Anya Villman. Yay!
Thank you.
As well as her amazing, because we got to say it again, we got to lean into it.
We sure do.
Aristocat Colonel Junior Adriana Spears, but I may or may not be calling her Adri, even though I might get some heat from Mama about not knowing full name, right? That's what I just heard? Okay. So we're going to talk to Anya and Adri. I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble. We're going to talk about all things dance today.
Yes.
And so first thing I always like to get y'all to do is just tell the people out there a little bit about each of you, about who you are.
Do you want to go first?
So I'll go first. Yeah. I'm Anya Villman. I am the director at Angleton High School. I'm from Angleton.
Yes, you are.
I'm a graduate, class of 2003. I just aged myself. Love that for me.
I'm older. It's fine.
I love giving back to my community and sharing all things fine arts and dance. I've been dancing since the age of 3 and danced all through college.
Still dances.
Still dancing because I also teach dance classes aside from being the drill team director at 6 a.m. in the morning. Mm-hmm. So that's the beauty of dance here at AHS, and I love what I do, and there's nothing more rewarding than being back home and sharing my passion for the art of dance with drill team members, and also just like people that are just interested in taking a dance class without having to pay for a dance class. So
it's part of their curriculum, it's part of their
absolutely
education.
Yeah.
How about you, Adri?
My name is Adriana. I'm a junior. I was born in Angleton, right at Angleton Danbury. It's not really exciting. I've been dancing since I was 2, which kind of sounds a little weird because most 2-year-olds aren't big, but I was pretty tall. I was a big 2-year-old.
So do we figure like, oh, she just looked bigger, it's fine.
Yeah, I was a big 2-year-old. Dance has been a part of my life. It's a way for me to express myself. I've made new friends. I've really opened up as a person. I'm kind of closed off, but I've opened up. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Sounds so bad to say that.
So we have, I'm going to go ahead and call it professional grade level dancers in this room with me today, which makes me feel really bad about myself right now. I'm going to hit it off and start right at the beginning with you, Ms. Villman. Talk about dance at AISD. You kind of mentioned it, like kids can come and take it for free, but what does the dance program look like here? I know you got the dance program, but also the Aristocats. What does that look like here?
Right. So the dance program is growing. It's evolving. It's fun to watch because I know when I was in school here, we didn't have dance offered as an elective. So kids can take it and it will suffice as a fine arts credit, or they can take it to suffice their PE credit.
Oh, okay. That's
Either or. Yeah. And then I also have a lot of my veterans who aren't interested in dance and just love to dance and don't want to do the drill team. And I have them all 4 years until they're seniors. And it's just rewarding to see them grow. So that's the dance side of it. And then the other side would be the drill team side, which obviously you'd have to audition for. We are a varsity level team, so you have to have prior dance experience. And we've grown.
Because it's competitive.
It is competitive. It is.
Point, yeah.
So we've grown to, we're at 29. That's the max I've had since I've been here. And this is my 6th year directing. So dance is definitely growing. And it's just that rewarding side for me too. We're here early with the team. That's the competitive side. So with drill team, it's you see us on the field doing the traditional field dances. And then if you ever go to our pep rallies, you see they do hip hop, they do pom, they do the other side that a lot of people don't see. So in the springtime, we do the competitive side, which is the dance side of it. So I'm trying to get away from calling us drill team because we're more than that. It's dance team. I feel like dance team covers
it's drill
the
team
whole
maybe
year.
Fall, but yes.
Correct. Drill team is the
team.
fall side,
yeah.
the football side. And then as far as dance classes go, my classes are huge. I have a class of 29 freshmen. Wow. You do see a lot more freshmen in the intro classes, and then I have 2 upper level classes and 2 intro classes. So they keep me busy, and I've had some amazing kids with 0 dance experience just take an intro class their freshman year and heard about drill team.
Ended up going in that way.
Ended up asking me, what do I need to have to be successful? What are the requirements? I work with them when I can in class. They audition and they made the team. And I'm speaking mainly about my first boy who made history, Julio. He was that person. And he's just dancer, amazing, put in the work, and he's just evolved into such an amazing dancer. So
it probably had no studio dance.
No studio dance,
like
and correct. And I feel like that's a lot of the misconception too. Like, yes, we're a varsity level team, but you don't have to have had studio, right? So you can just take my intro class and see where the road leads, and if that's a goal, let's go for it and see if we can make that goal happen.
That's I think there's so many layers to the dance program that people don't see.
They don't.
Like you said, the classes that you're teaching that fulfill both fine arts or PE. And then the whole other layer on the side of Aristocat's dance team.
Absolutely. And also with dance classes, a lot of people don't realize, like, so I'm a studio teacher too, but I try to structure my dance classes here like studio. But it's more. We do dance history. They present. We do units. So I'm not just teaching hip-hop. We're doing hip-hop. We're doing contemporary. We're doing cultural dancing. Oh, wow. We're doing jazz. We do all the units.
Yeah, all the things.
Yes.
And so I think that's interesting. And I'm going to go ahead and I thought about putting this maybe at the end of the questions, but I'm going to throw it out there because when you have this culminating year, one of the best shows and things I get to go to every year. I mean, I get to see the dancers all the time. Shout out because I have a niece who's on the dance team. I do. Yes. A little Mason. Yes, she's probably going to kill me for that.
No, she's not. She's going to love it.
That was Mason Chalmers, everybody. Let me say that again.
Shout out Mason Chalmers.
But no, seriously, I get to see it. But if you have not had a chance to see the Aristocat Spring Show, if you don't go to anything else, if you can get a ticket, because there ain't a lot of space in that
sold
auditorium.
Out since I've directed.
Yes, it has sold out since you've directed. It is amazing. The show is so good, and I walk away from it every year, just seeing new things, growth. Like you said, I've seen some of those kids grow from those, because you have your dance classes perform there. It's not just Aristocats.
Nope. It's all dance. It's the whole district dance.
And it's you've had other fine art groups join in as well.
West Side, their little hip hop crew, the junior high drill team comes. And the special part that I added 2 years ago was when I saw talent with these, it was an intro class, they were freshmen. These 3 girls still see me, they're all seniors now. I knew they were so talented. And so the second year I pulled them and I said, do you want a spot in spring show? Which is not usually ever done. So last year was their second year, I think, that they self-choreograph their routine. They're the little trio you see if you have been to spring show. They have a cute little
name too, right?
Yes, yeah. It's like their initials. So it's Ariana, Turner, Raven Peterson, and Kimberly. Amazing group of girls. They love dancing, and those girls stemmed from dance classes at Angleton.
Yeah.
And they're going places. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'm watching it, and you would have never thought they maybe had no prior experience coming into your program. I love seeing that. You had drumline and
yes,
you had
all the fine arts. I tried.
You really try to incorporate choir,
yes,
all kinds of groups, and so it's a great show. I know I've kind of sprung out of that, but I mean it is a fantastic show to go watch. But good luck with getting a ticket.
Yes, I would advise get them early because it is always standing room only, or it's sold out. Yes.
Okay, we do have the other guest, Adri, here. I don't want her to think. It's okay. It's okay. I'm going to bring her in, too.
I talk a lot.
So you kind of already touched on it a little bit. Why do you really love dance? You talked about it brought you kind of out of a shell a little bit, but you've been dancing since you were 2. And you can go, oh, my gosh, I'm over it. But no, it is your passion. Why?
Let's see. I come from like a sport family. Everybody plays like basketball, softball. My parents have no rhythm.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Another reason for
Latina.
They have no rhythm. So like when I don't know where dance came from, but I knew like once I started that was something I wanted to do. And then going to studio and like obviously you start at like beginner classes and then just growing. And then when I got asked to be on the competition team and like I went to competitions and I saw like the older girls dancing, I was like, oh, I want to get there. Like that's where I want to be. And I worked my butt off and I got there. And then with drill team wise, my cousin was on the drill team and I was like, oh, every time I went to the game, I was like, I want to be that. I'm going to be that.
That's where you got your rhythm.
And and I made it my goal to be on the high school drill team with West Side. When I was in elementary, they had like a little drill team thing.
The Kit Kats, right?
The Kit Kats.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Super
Shout
cute.
out Miss
That.
Fishbuck. I was there for all 3 years. And then junior high, all 3 years of junior high. And then I made it my high school year. And ever since then, it's made me who I am. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm known for.
And that leads me to my next question. And you can both try to answer this if you want, or Ms. Villman, start with you.
I'll try not to.
No, I didn't mean it like that. But the importance of dance in education. We know electives, kids sometimes come to us, not because they want to sit in a regular traditional educational experience, but they come because of the electives and the passions that they have for these programs. But what is the importance of dance in education?
Oh my goodness, dance does so much. It builds self-confidence. It builds character. It builds discipline. Life skills, especially if you're on my drill team.
Yeah.
Our practice starts at 6 a.m. and they know you can't be in the hallway at 6 a.m. You better be in that dance room stretching.
To go at 6. It's a
Absolutely.
Structure. Yeah.
So I feel like, and I just told them this morning, we had a little bonding before we rehearsed just to kind of, I like to switch things up. Y'all are ahead of the game. I know the mornings are hard, but they're ahead of it. By the time they hit college or it's working after high school, they have that structure. And I just feel like it gives these kids an outlet that maybe they don't have at home because we all come from different households and different environments.
Learning those skills that they don't necessarily see or get at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the beauty about that is I see them evolve. Freshman year, or say you're taking my intro class, it builds that confidence. And within like December, they're walking in like different kids. And I love it and I'm here for it. And it builds those friendships too.
Like you said that, Adri, right? Like that network. So do you see the importance of dance in education?
Yeah, I feel like most people don't think dance is a sport. So you come to high school and you're like, oh, now I have to figure out what sport I want to play. But no, you come here and you have a dance program. If dance is your passion, you have somewhere to let things go. Or like if you want to be a professional, you have an amazing teacher that's going to teach you step by step on ways to get there. So I feel like it's really important.
And again, going back to it does develop such character.
It does.
In kids.
Yeah.
I've actually known Adri for a while, and she's not joking when she says come out of the shell, because I see it, and I see that smile right now that nobody else can see.
Yeah.
And I love it, because that is what I want to see out of the kids, and this program does that for them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Again, both of you can try to answer this one. What are some common misconceptions people have about dance? I know, I guess the sport part was one of them, right? But what's another
So dance here at school, or just in general?
Well, in general, either way.
I feel like the misconception, like just referring to like dance in school, would be kind of what Adriana said, like, oh, it's not a sport, it's
like a blow-off thing.
Like a blow-off, or y'all don't work as hard as any other sports.
Like,
and it's like, I'm pretty sure we're here before you all. Now, do you know what I mean? And a lot of people don't realize that we're year round. So a lot of people, I remember my first couple years, like, oh, y'all do, so drill teams or football's over. What do y'all do next?
Like,
that's what I get a lot. Yes. And I go, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
I go, we compete in February. We're prepping and we do like 5 dances, and then we have spring show. It's nonstop.
And then you have solos also with that too. It's
Correct.
not just, or trios or whatever.
Yes. Also too, just, I feel like maybe, oh, don't do school dance, because go do studio dance, which my thing is, I will never tell my kids to do. I want kids that want to be here, right? So because of the time commitment drill team requires here at Angleton, I have had a lot of people, some are still juggling both. It's hard.
It is hard.
But I've had a lot of people let one go, meaning studio, because of the late nights, because we are here so early. And it's just such
on top of that, then going like 8 o'clock at night.
absolutely time commitment. But I just feel like we still work. We're here. We rehearse like 2 hours every morning, and that's a little bit more than most studio people go and take class, depending
hour and a half. Tops, hour and a half usually.
Yeah, and this is year round too. Dance team at Angleton. We start in July, late July, and we end in May.
It's a long year.
It's a long
year for dancing. Trust me. What about you? Do you see anything that people maybe misunderstand about dance?
I think it's like the work ethic. Like, people really think that we just come in, we dance, and we call it a day, but it's like Tuesdays and Thursdays we run. We put in the work. It's not just like, oh, you see us dance at pep rallies and you call it a day. No. Or like, people think like we do like TikTok dances.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the worst thing. People are like, oh yeah, that's what. No. Like, this is
a different level. Yes.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
This is a structural thing. Like, this is what we train to do. Like, we don't just come in and just, oh, let's whip out something, call it a day. Like, no, we work every day until Friday. We work every day to show what we have.
And it's multiple dances too. That's another thing people don't realize. So these kids
hard.
are
like 5 dances is hard.
We are, aside from just competition in the spring, like right now it's like field. Okay, what's next for the next game? And then we're going, okay, what's next for the next pep rally? And then it's got to look presentable. So then we got to clean these dances, meaning perfect it as best as we can. Yeah. And then we're working on technique when we can. That's a struggle too, because we don't have a lot of time. I feel like we're always crunched for time. Yeah. And that's me coming in at 6 a.m.,
Yeah. It's a hard, and you kind of lead into my next question, which is because of all this effort, because of the time and effort you put into it, like you said, you have success stories, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of the success stories that you have? What are the successes of the AISD dance program, dance team, Aristocats?
So on top of my head, I know like my 3rd or 4th year, the dance team, we made it to state for the first time, which was unheard of. So we took that one number that made it to that point. That was a huge deal for the dance program. I remember asking Smedley, because I needed some kind of approval, and he's like, oh my goodness, that's awesome. Have you all ever been? And I'm like, no, this is our first time.
I mean, it's like a big deal.
Absolutely.
It's a huge deal.
So we do have a thing called state, just like all the other sports, just so everyone knows. And then another rewarding one, which is what I mentioned earlier, was Julio, who's our first male ever to be an Aristocat. Even whenever I was in school and Aristocats was a thing, they never had a male. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's just beautiful, his story of just how he just signed up for dance class as a freshman, let me know he was interested. I worked with him before class and after class when I could. Mm-hmm. And just seeing him go from an intermediate beginner dancer to what he is now, aside from like he has such a great work ethic, you would look at him and you wouldn't tell that he just started dancing like what are your juniors? He's your age, right?
Yeah.
It's like
They're,
2-3 years
so
ago.
2 or 3 years ago. It's mind-blowing.
Right.
Like he can do technical things that I have some girls that have been taking studio that struggle with still. You know what I mean? So I feel like that is, I always tell him like, I'm so proud of him, and I know he knows that, but he's left his mark. He's made history, and I'm proud of him for that.
And it's a point for, as an educator, that is so significant because, after so many years of doing stuff, you never want to lose sight as to why you're an educator, right?
Right, absolutely.
And when you have that moment of that kid, and I mean, it's giving me chills talking about it because it is a powerful thing. When you have that moment of Julio could have gone through the cracks and nobody saw that talent in him.
Correct.
Right? And so giving him the opportunity to showcase talent, but to feel seen, to feel heard. Again, I'm cracking up a little bit because it is, I mean, it does. It's a powerful story.
It is.
It reminds me why I'm in education, as where I'm sitting. So it's important to understand that. And again, it goes back to that whole question I asked, the importance of dance in education, because it does give those opportunities.
Absolutely.
Okay, before I start full on crying, like hard, ugly cry, but nobody can see me, it's good. I do want to give you a chance to maybe tell people out there, we've already talked about how kids can kind of get involved.
Yeah.
But are there other ways, like if people, like I told you, go to the spring shows, but what else can people do to be involved? Community, parents, kids.
Yeah. So and I tell the kids all the time, I'm talking about just drill team for this one, we're here to serve our community. Don't forget that. We're not above anyone. We're humble. We lead, but we serve. So we're involved we try to do all the community things here. So we're always going to be at the Brazoria County Fair Parade. We always do, every year, we don't miss it, Cookies with Santa. That always happens in December, where we get to interact with the community, parents and kids. The girls have to get down, color. They decorate cookies.
They're role models,
They're
right?
role
You're a
models.
role model,
Absolutely.
right,
And even just at the games, seeing the little kids when they pass us at games and we're in the stands, and you see them, their eyes light up. And it's like, Mommy, look at her. So pretty. I want to do that. Or say they're doing the dance movements with the girls. To me, as an educator, that's the rewarding part. That's the fulfilling why of like, that's my reminder. So we try to do all the community things. We also compete in February. So we try to keep it local, but you can always go watch. I'm very, very active. We have our Facebook page. I know a lot of our parents are on
Just
Facebook.
following you would be a good way to
Following
join
us
you.
on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Like, the girls are doing all the things.
I would love to. I actually don't see your TikTok, so I need to go on there because I think I would be very, like I would be in that like tunnel of just constant, right? Watching it because I can imagine y'all's TikTok is pretty fun.
So we actually, was it last week?
Yeah, we
last
made
week.
TikToks.
There's moments where I can kind of read the room, right? I'm that empath where I feel all the feelings and I'm like, we had like 20 minutes and I don't like to give them a lot of time to get dressed because I'm very sweet.
I may or may not have heard that.
We get
From
like,
my
I'm
niece.
pretty
Well,
sure.
they get like 5. I don't get 5 minutes. I have another period, but like they get like 5 minutes.
That's what I was told.
They
5
get
minutes.
5
And
minutes.
she's like, okay, bye. And they're all running out.
Yes.
So again, you think y'all have it hard. Sometimes you don't understand. There's a
Yes.
5-minute done with dance, get dressed, go to class.
Yeah, and my thing is like it's also just teaching them structure too. So some people may call me hard, too strict. I don't think so. I think I'm prepping my girls for
Reality.
success and life and
Yeah.
hello college, if college is the pathway you're going.
And seriously, at college, sometimes you have 10 minutes to get to a
Correct.
class from one side of the
Absolutely.
campus to the other.
Yeah.
Time management, responsibility, all the things. What was the question again? I forgot. That's what happens
It's cool.
to me.
People getting involved, and I think seeing
Yes.
y'all on your socials,
That
coming
was
to
what
the
we're
games and cheering for you at the games. You've already talked about also how they you service the community as well. So if there are needs that y'all have out there that you maybe want to see and reach out to the Aristocats to see
Yes.
if they can be a
If
part
we're
of.
available.
If they're available, it's not
Absolutely.
competition moment. Yeah, maybe they can.
Right.
They do have a tight schedule. I understand that.
We do.
And these girls work hard. I know
Yes.
that. And Julio, so I'm not going to just say girls. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Let me rephrase
Girls,
that.
sounds
Girls
like
and
me.
gent.
I'm always
Yeah,
like, girls
I'm
and
sorry,
gent. And then
Julia.
he'll
Okay.
look at me, he goes, thanks.
So the team and works a lot of time, and they
Yes.
like they'll go long nights at football games. So just how do people get involved? How do people become part of this, even though they don't have a kid who's on that?
Correct. Get involved to support or get involved?
Just support. Yeah.
So we do have, so the interest would be, I get messages on Facebook too from parents, but we have been starting, this is like the 3rd or 4th year that the Fine Arts does go to the junior high in the springtime, and we do a recruitment day. That was something new.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is also, so when I present, and I usually take my officers with me to help present, because it's like we spend our whole day there, and that's a lot of talking. And it helps them get their speaking skills out there with these junior high kids. So we speak to all the 8th graders, trying to recruit them really not for team, but for dance classes, because we also don't want the misconception of like, oh, it's a club. Like we need them to audition, but also too, the nice part of that is if we say, if you have questions afterwards, come up to us, and then I'll get that, oh, I am interested in drill team. I do have dance experience. And then I'll say, email me. And then I work them in to maybe a higher dance class, or say they do come to auditions, because anyone can audition. Now, do they have to have a background? Yes. But it's also one of those things, I'm the one that teaches the actual workshop. So it's 3 days until it's 3 days and then audition day. So that's your chance to come and see like, okay, can I hang or can I?
Yeah, because it's mind-blowing sometimes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming. And then I've had some kids who are like, yes, and they got it and they were successful. And then I have some that, okay, day one, I didn't come back after day one, but that's fine. And then they enroll in my dance class. And then we build that. Okay, what path do you want? Do you just want dance? And just take dance classes throughout high school, or is it drill team that is your goal for high school?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think you've answered the question, because it is definitely making sure parents understand the process a little bit.
Right.
And then you've already talked about community. We're good. I just kind of want to end this with giving y'all a chance to say anything y'all want to about dance. I know Adriana's giving me like, what eyes? So what are you asking me? But just say anything else that you might want to say, a shout out to anybody, anything that you want to give. Maybe your mom and dad's that you told them they didn't have rhythm.
Oh, yeah.
You showed the world.
My mom's probably listening to this. Hey, girl. Hey, girl.
Well, I feel like a lot of people don't know that a lot of, the dancers that I have on my team, I've known since they were little. And that's due to the studio that I choose to work at, right? And I've done that for many, many years before coming here to teach dance. So the rewarding part is I don't just know these kids from high school. I know them since they were like 3 or 6. These are my kids.
Yeah.
So seeing them evolve into, because Adriana was quiet. She was the quiet
really
one.
was, folks.
And
she
then
kind of still is, but
yeah. And seeing her now lead a team, which in my gut I already knew, like junior high, like she's going places. And I would tell her mom that. And I saw that, I see it with her now. I saw it with Tinley. I saw it with Savannah. Yes, that's the rewarding part. And aside from just not even being officers, just a lot of girls just being on the team and committing to the team and seeing them evolve. And then some continue to dance in college, and that's beautiful. That's even more rewarding. And then some choose to not. But those are the memories that I get to keep as educator, and that's just everything to me. So I'm very, very grateful.
I don't know another way that's better than that to end it. So we're just going to say thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Villman. Thank you to Adriana. Yes, I used the full name. Thank you guys for coming and sharing a little bit, a very small part about everything that you do with AISD Dance and AHS Dance and Aristocats. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We are back for our third segment of the episode, and this one's the one where we always kind of ask questions of Mr. Edwards, so he's joining us again. One of the things that we do put out before we record a new podcast is we ask our community if they have any questions, and we got a few questions, so I'm going to give you the chance to answer them. And a couple of them, you've touched on some things that may be a little bit akin to them, but not necessarily hitting their questions. It's always up to them if they want to give me their name, but this person did. Her name was Keisha, so I want to give her a shout out. Thank you, Keisha. She's asking for you to tell us more about the new schools being built and provide details about the events that maybe led to those decisions.
Okay, so what usually starts this off is we get a demographic study done that shows us what growth is going to look like. I think one of the really important things that we have to pay attention to is we don't look like what student enrollment looks like right now. We look at what student enrollment is going to look like 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, and down the road. Because the truth is, it takes about a year to get a bond passed, and then once the bond passes, it takes about 2 more years to get the schools built. So we actually started this process on these 2 new schools about 2 years ago, and we still got a year to go.
Because that bond was 2022.
Right. So once the demographic study shows us, look, we're going to have really overcrowded schools if we don't do something, we then called together a community bond advisory committee of about 50, 60 people. We met 5 times, and they came up with, yes, we need a new elementary school. We want a new junior high because the current junior high we had is way too overcrowded. 1,600 kids in one building was too much. The committee was absolutely right, and so we want a second junior high and to split that in 2. And so that was the decision that was made.
That's where heritage comes from.
That's where heritage comes from.
Yeah.
And then we go through. We put the bond. The board calls the bond election. The bond passes, and then we start going through the process of design and build and how all those things happen. The reason where the schools are being placed on 521 came about because that's a home development that's going to go in out there, and it becomes really advantageous for us as a school district to purchase land in that home development because we can buy it really cheaply, more so than it would cost us to go out and try to buy land acreage on our own. And it kind of gets us to work with the developer on the development of roads and sidewalks around the school and all those kinds of things.
It becomes a partnership.
Right, it becomes a partnership. So they provide utilities to us. That's just kind of how all that works. And so it's a really great way to do that. So that's why the 2 schools are where they're at. I'd say the other thing that's really interesting about these 2 schools is even though it's an elementary school and a junior high, when you drive out there, it looks like one building because it technically is. There's the elementary on one side, the junior high on the other side. There's a wall in between them. The 2 schools won't meet at all. They'll go to school during different times. I think junior high will start at the same time it does now, at 7:15. Elementary won't go till 8:15. Kids will get out at different times, so the kids won't be combining.
Or, like coming to school
interacting,
and releasing at the same time.
Right, interacting and those kinds of things. So that was done. The other thing about building it as one building is, again, it's a cost savings for us. So even though we have 2 separate cafeterias, 2 very separate buildings, we have one common kitchen. That's a great savings for the district. And then we have one mechanical yard, so one air conditioning system, one electrical system. That's a great savings for the district instead of having to build 2 separate ones. So that's why we did it that way. I think the last thing that's really interesting about the schools is we've tried to design them and so that they're kind of curved. So if you drive out 521 and see them, that's done for protection issues. It makes our schools safer. It allows, so when kids go out to play in the playgrounds, those kinds of things, it allows, you can't be seen by the roads. And kids it's a safer environment for kids to be in. And so that's kind of how we got to the process of kind of where we landed on doing this. We're excited about opening the 2 new schools. The junior high will start out with about 800 kids in it. We believe Heartland Elementary will start out with about 450 kids in it. But as housing developments get built out there, which we know there's 3 moving dirt right now and more to come, those schools will fill up pretty quickly, we believe.
All right. Question 2. Not sure who it came from, and I'm going to kind of sum this one up a little bit because this person asked specifically about one of our special programs, more specifically about dyslexia. But just kind of generally, can you talk about if people have questions about special programs like dyslexia, special education, 504, any of those things, others out there, I'm sure, what can they do to get their questions answered? So
the best and first thing that I would tell people to do is call your child's school, talk to the principal. They can help you with that. But if you don't feel like, if the principal doesn't feel like they can get you all the information you need, or you want more information, would be to call our administration building. We have a dyslexia lead in the school.
Coordinator, I believe now.
Dyslexia coordinator. We have a gifted and talented coordinator. We have a ESL bilingual coordinator. We have a special ed director. All those types of programs, we have people who are very well versed and very knowledgeable about that. And if you'll just call our administration building,
Which is 979-864-8000.
right.
Was that enough zeros? 8,000.
Right. Call us and we will connect you with their offices, and they will get back to you very quickly and help you answer all your questions. So again, the most important thing is make sure you communicate with us, and we absolutely will help you with any of your questions about those types of programs.
We can't get to all questions that are always asked of us, but I do want to follow up and ask one last one, just to keep it a tight segment here. You've kind of already talked about in segment 1, and I hope everybody listened to that already, about moving forward in staffing with the 2 new schools. But that affects staffing not just at the 2 new schools, that's the entire district. How will the new schools be staffed, and what teachers and employees will be moving to the new schools?
So great question. I'm sure our staff that's listening to this is very interested in what we're going to do here.
Sure.
The first thing I'll tell you is we have now scheduled a series of faculty meetings. We actually have our first one today at Angleton Junior High, which we'll be going in and speaking with all the teaching staff, or all staff, paraprofessional staff, all employees, because this will affect all levels of employees, custodians, cafeteria workers, everybody. And going through exactly what that process will be and answering their questions. In general, it will look like this. We will ask staff in January, do they voluntarily want to be chosen to go out to the new campuses? And if they do, they can submit that, and we'll take a look at that and make choices about whether to send them out there or not. The next step will be is we then will go and possibly ask certain staff members, hey, would you be willing to go out there and be part of that teaching staff? And they'll either tell us yes or tell us no, but that's kind of what that, look, we're asking you, we need your help to go out there. Would you do that for us? And so once all that's done, if we haven't been able to fully staff the schools at that time, then we'll have to do what we call involuntary choosing. And that means we're going to have to assign you to go to those schools. That's the last step. It's the last step for a reason. We really don't want to do it. We don't want to get to that point. We realize that we probably will, but we want to try to do that in a respectful manner and help people achieve and work where they want to work at. I think the last thing that's really important here is that you heard me talk in the first segment about equity. We're not going to put all brand new teachers or first year teachers out at those schools. We're going to need to have equity in experience of teachers. And so we'll be asking, look, we need grade level leads out there. We need department leads in the junior high. And so that's going to mean if we can't find someone who voluntarily wants to go out there, or that we ask to go out there that doesn't want to go out there, then we will have to find teachers who have experience and who are demonstrate leadership skills to be able to go out there and fill those positions for us. And so we want to make sure everything stays equitable in our school district. And so staffing will also kind of follow that model.
And that equity goes to help. At the end of the day, it's always about student achievement.
Correct.
We've got to make sure the kids have the best educational opportunities available to them. But it is trying to be equitable to our staff as well.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's something that people need to understand, that that's all done with that.
And the great thing about our staff here in Angleton is everybody puts kids first. And so when you have those conversations with people about, I know this is not what you want to do, but this is in the best interest of the students, everybody usually gets on board at that point, because that's what everybody's in this profession for that reason.
Well, that's a great way to kind of end the segment in the podcast. That's the reason we're here, is for the kids, right?
That's right.
So I want to thank you again for joining. If you have anything less.
No, it's just great. I'm glad Thomas is with us this year.
Thomas is our new sound engineer
this
year.
We missed Des, but we're glad Thomas is with us. And so we appreciate his help. And I really enjoy doing these things. I hope our community continues to listen to them. I think it's a great way to get information to our community.
Well, this episode has tons of information for people. Thank you again to all of our guests this episode, Mr. Edwards, Ms. Villman and Adriana, as well as Alex Radau, our producer, Thomas Garza, we just talked about him, our sound engineer, who's a student as well, and Scott Fardosi, one of our band instructors, who did our music for the podcast. We really appreciate it. It's original music. So thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time. This is Hannah Chalmers. Stay excellent, Wildcats.